Hello, Paul McFadden here, and today I'm joined with Dean Kelly, which I'm looking forward to get into his story. And that's the purpose of these podcasts, because my goal is to inspire you. My goal is to let you hear people's journey from their background into property, but more importantly, discussing the deals that they're working on and what they've been able to achieve as such. And Dean's story is brilliant because we're going to dig into that. And he's been working with us for the best part of 4 years now. We were just talking about this just before, and he attended a Protege down in London when we used to do them there. And we will be doing a Protege in London again next year. So, keep tuned for that. But let's kick things off by first welcoming you to the podcast. How are you, Dean?
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
All the way from Torquay?
Yeah, sunny Torquay.
Sunny Torquay. So first and foremost, let's jump into the background. Give me a bit more about your background, pre-property.
Okay, so pre-property, so I sort of started as a carpenter when I left school and went into the sort of site management route, which was effectively, I think, how I started to connect with yourself, Paul, sort of thinking a similar background. This guy's doing all of these cool things. And then I worked my way up into a sort of project management role in a sort of consultancy side, but always really interested in property and what I can actually do and how I could begin, the journey as such.
Yeah. And so with your background, because that background's clearly helped you a lot, hasn't it?
It has.
And this is one of the things I always like to share with people as well, is that regardless to what your background is, you get a lot of life skills through doing that.
Yeah.
And that's obviously good to transfer that into the whole property side of things too.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think for me, I think it sort of helps build the trust. People are quite sort of skeptical about refurbishments, about builders, how you deal with certain people. But actually, given my background, I have that sort of skill set and the knowledge to be able to give people confidence, to be able to effectively run the projects and also, feedback to investors, how things are going and sort of inspire that bit of trust, I think, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your thoughts about property prior to that? Because obviously you're working in your full-time employment at the time, and and it's a great transferable skill, but what was your thoughts around property in the sense of you getting involved in doing it?
Yeah, I literally had the same knowledge as 99% of people, to be honest. But, I had my own house and I was like, right, I've brought my own house now. At sort of, I was 25, 26, I brought that house and I thought I can add some value and I'll sell it. And I was going to do exactly what everyone else does, is that I was just going to scale up through my own house. So I thought that's the way I can do it. I thought, maybe I might be able to add a buy to let at some point in the future. But I had no real idea. And I think I very much go into Proto and obviously getting involved with yourself, this was where I think it was that excitement, that you were doing things differently, and the things you were mentioning. At first, I thought, how are these things even possible? I just knew that you might be able to buy a buy to let, and that was what I was focused on, to be honest.
So, so that was your thoughts. Get a buy to let, and take it from there.
Yep.
So where did you first meet us? Because was it coming along at a jump start that we did down in London?
I think it was probably LinkedIn. I think someone, actually another Scottish property professional, she shared something of yours.
Okay.
And then I just sort of clicked on, and then I found myself down a sort of rabbit warren of, finding out who you were. And I'm quite I suppose I'm quite a skeptical person, I must admit. So I listened to, all of your podcasts, I read the books, and that must have been for about 9 months before I was like, this guy is the guy. But I say it was that I was driving down to sort of Cornwall managing these projects and listening to yourself on the podcast all the way down, and I'm thinking I need to do something, I need to now actually get involved with this properly.
Listening to the podcast and now being on the podcast. I love it. So you attended around about 4 years ago.
Yep.
A Protege that we did down in London. So first and foremost, before we get into the stuff you've been working on over the last 4 years, what was your experience at Protege and what was your thoughts for it all?
I must admit, Protege blew my mind. It was sort of, I went there not really knowing too much what to expect. And obviously we sort of start on the, going through the mindset. And actually, I think that has been so key. And I probably didn't appreciate at the time how important all of that mindset stuff was. And obviously having gone through that journey. But Protege, I think the biggest sort of take home for me, and we were actually speaking about this last night, is that it was like an all-encompassing, course. We sort of, sometimes I meet people who are working on amazing projects, and then they're sort of, they have no idea how to raise money. Where I think at Protege, we were taught, this is the mindset, here are the strategies, here's how you raise money. I almost felt like we were given a ready-made business that, go away and do the work. I didn't feel that anything was missing. So it was a lot to take in over I think it was 4 days at the time. But I felt like I had everything. So as I mentioned just before, when 2 days into Proto, I rang my partner Grace. I was like, Grace, I need to get you on this course because I just knew I wouldn't be able to relay, what I'd learned.
Yeah, and it's great that Grace has joined you on that
It
journey as
certainly
well,
is. Yep.
because I always think that if you've got your partner, not that it's a prerequisite, because I get it. Some people's partners, are focusing on other things, but when you can get at least an alignment,
Yep.
I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for having Alexa by my side and
Definitely.
supporting and helping and being involved in the business and sharing, her take on things.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be the same with Grace.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I find, to be fair, Grace is a much better judge of character than I am. So whereas I'm more of a numbers man, I'd like to sort of have a look into the deals. Grace will, do the initial sort of, welcoming intros. And then actually it's me that sort of, this is what I want to do.
Great. Complement each other, which is
Exactly,
awesome.
yeah.
Love it. So with that whole journey in Proto, now 5 days, because again, for us, it's all about over delivering and giving a lot more value, and we're always improving things. But I'm glad that you've shared that, because for me, it's important that people are well equipped so that they can leave there and at least be able to start taking action and have that ongoing support as well. So after Proto, tell me, when was your first deal and what was that?
So after Proto, it was probably around 3 months after, I think, sort of looking at obviously just trying to get all the systems and stuff in place. And as I look back, I probably could have, focused a little bit more of my energy on different things, but I think that's all part of the learning curve. But I sourced an off-market property, exactly as we'd sort of been taught, got that packaged up, and that literally cleared my Proto investment. So within 3 months, I was almost cost neutral. So that was my first one, and then sort of shortly after that was when I started looking at the first flip that I had.
So you started off trading on a deal.
I did,
which is all smart. The sooner you can pay back your investment, that's property after all. Like
Definitely.
if you're investing in a property, you're investing for a return.
Yep.
If you're investing in your education, then the sooner you can then get cash flow back in there to pay for that, then you've got an education for life that's going to continue to make you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds.
Yeah, and especially because it was a concept I'd never even heard of before I came to Proto. What passing on a deal, packaging a deal, what even is that? So that was why it was even better for me, because it was doing something that I'd never even heard of before the course. So I couldn't have done it before Proto.
Yeah, and is that still a strategy that you have been implementing over the 4 years?
I've become lazy, if I'm honest, Paul, in that I found it quite. I've connected sort of with a lot of investors, a lot of good clients, and I tend to utilize the power of the tribe now to co-source. So I think there are a lot of better sources in the tribe than me, so I utilize them, and then I sort of bring in the clients and the funds.
But that's super smart. It's not like some people come in and it was a necessity for me at the beginning when I started my property journey. I've shared that a million times. No one needs to hear it again. But I was forced to do deal trading because, at the age of 19 when I get started, I couldn't raise the finance. Nobody could take me seriously. I had to, just trade on deals and build, a bit of a track record doing that, which was great because it gave me cash flow, allowed me to go full-time in property relatively, in my mind, quickly, which is 5 years, but you've been doing what you've done in 4 years in property far exceeds what I did in my first 5 years, which is nuts. And we'll get into it a little bit more because there's some great deals you're working on. So it's not that you're being lazy, you're being smart. You're being great with your time. You're like, well, I can still get investors, I can still get certain and I can then start collaborating and partnering with other people.
Definitely.
And that's, I guess, the power of the group as well.
100%. Yeah, and being a part of that group, I think in my first 6 months, maybe I didn't use the group as well as I should have, and it wasn't until my first flip came around that was when I realised the power of the group truly.
Yeah, so talk us through that first flip.
So the first one was very much, so someone came to me basically desperate to sell, exactly as we've been taught. He really needed to sell this property. He brought it for 90,000. Sort of 18 months later, he'd been trying to do the work, and he was working 7 days a week. Couldn't sort of fund a new van. He was in a really quite a desperate situation. So he came to me and sort of asked what we could do. So he came to me through my marketing side, asked what we could do. I had a suggestion of an assisted sale. That one wasn't an assisted sale. He basically just wanted to sell it quickly. So I had a look back through the numbers, came to a figure that I was sort of content with, and it was 73,000. Went back to him and said, I can do 73. He needed the money before Christmas. I think we were about 5 weeks out. I think we were like end of October. So it was sort of a bit of so I said, right, okay, 73,000, put the offer in. The problem with that offer is that I was £73,000 short. So obviously I had a bit of ground to make up. So I knew it was a deal. I'd done the refurb costs. I knew what the end value was. So I basically put the summary in the tribe. had 2 or 3 people reach out to me, and a chap called Ian, who's still very good friends with, reached out and basically said, yeah, he would fund. So he brought the property, he paid for the refurbishment, and the agreement was that either on sale or revaluation, we would half whatever that made. So effectively, obviously, I was involved in my first property flip without actually putting any funds in.
This is what I love about this game, you know? And I've seen comments that you've posted inside the group before, especially when you talk about the assisted sale, which I would love to talk about that deal. And I'm paraphrasing here, but one of the comments you made was, it's still a bit surreal to think that I can get involved in property deals that makes this level of profit and I didn't put any money in. And it kind of messes with people's heads a lot, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah. I mean, when I have sort of friends, I try and explain, like, when I come up to Proto, you know, up here with yourselves in Scotland, it's the only time I can openly talk about everything that we're doing, because when I start speaking to friends or family, they have no real idea, so I don't talk too much about it, to be honest.
Because it's so freaking alien. What do you mean you found a property and they sold it for you for what? And someone else paid for that? And what, they gave you the money for the refurb? And what, you make do you know that way when you actually run through the steps? Even when I see it myself, I'm kind of like, yeah, that is a bit weird.
That's it. And people, you know, oh, you can't buy property at the moment, you can't find property at the moment, you know, property prices are too high. There's just a list of things they're reeling off as to why they're not buying properties or why they're not doing anything at the moment. Yeah,
and people like yourself especially that don't get caught up in all that, because that's dream killers. It's people who don't understand property. You know, it's people who don't understand that there's deals to be had, and you know, there's different strategies, and there's people that always want to fund your deals because, you know, that's where they make money, and you all make money together. And once you start to realize that the world's very different, you know, and it's that's not their experience as of yet, until they start to learn, until they start to get into a different community where there's collaboration there, people wanting to work together, you know, there is deals to be had,
there
you know.
is.
So your first year, you've done a deal trade, you've did a flip. Was there anything else?
There wasn't, to be honest, because I was in a paid salary position. I think as I look back at it now, I could have done more. But we were just sort of starting then to come into the sort of COVID and unknown element as well. So that was. It was a fairly slow start, and actually speaking to people now, I sort of don't think anyone should knock themselves for the slower start. I was still doing a lot of work in the background, you know, still trying to understand everything, still trying to build relationships. But that was pretty much all. I think we might have co-sourced another deal in that first year, but there wasn't loads in the first year.
Yeah, but I guess again you've been hard on yourself because COVID did come along, didn't it? The lockdown that threw a spanner in the works for many people, you know. So, so as that started to I guess ease up and things started to get back to a bit of normality. You know, talk us through maybe that assisted sale deal, because that one's an absolute cracker.
Yeah, that was a beast, to be honest. So basically it was an old Victorian property, absolutely beautiful in its day, and it had fallen into what was quite a state of disrepair, really. There were some tenants living in there, actually, I'll go back to how I found it. So I spent 2 hours on the tennis court on a Thursday morning, and I was there and I was sort of almost self-punishing, thinking, you know, what am I doing? I need to be working hard. You know, I'm there playing tennis. Got to the end of the tennis match, and the guy there said, I understand you deal with properties. And he said, can I have a chat with you? And he basically said, look, I've got this property, I've got tenants in it. I haven't got the money to sort of do the refurb, but I'm looking to do something with the property. So I went to see it and agreed that we would obviously look at the assisted sale route. So I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, but ultimately, as you know, it's just that we get the property ready, refurb it, they don't put any money in, and then we can get it on the market in a, you know, beautiful sort of end condition. So that one so I agreed a base price of 160,000 with a chap for that one, and the refurb turned into being an absolute monster. If I'm honest, it was every time we lifted a floorboard, there were like live cables and stuff, like loose ends underneath the floorboards. The pipe work was awful. So there's all sorts of bits and pieces. So what I did was put in £110,000. I say I put in. Obviously, this is a deal where I effectively flipped a property without ever owning it and without ever putting a single penny in. So it was actually a guy within the tribe funded the deal. So he put the investment in, and the agreement was that I sort of took him along the journey on that as well. So it was 160 purchase or agreed base price, 110,000 was the refurb cost. Anything over 270, what I did was gave the seller 25%, and then obviously I kept the 75%. So it was more of an incentive for him. And it also meant, because he's local to the area, he was selling a house that actually had sentimental value to him. You know, he didn't want to put it on the market as it was because it didn't look great. And actually, when we put it on the market, you know, it's this beautiful sort of Victorian detached, like it looked like an amazing house. So I think it was much easier for him to do that. And obviously getting that extra £17,500 that he got was was a nice sort of kicker for him as well.
This is what I love about that whole assisted sales strategy and why it's a phenomenal opportunity, because, you know, sellers think they have one exit, which is put my property in the market and it will sell. If it's not in so great condition, it might stick on the market a little bit longer, you know, and you're going to get cheeky offers. And with an assisted sale, you can give the seller what they want. Pretty much.
100%. I think a call I remember, actually, I called you, and I think it was like a 2-minute phone call, but I thought at the start of that was a flip. I thought I needed to buy that house. It was a lot of money, you know, the £110,000. That concerned me, to be honest, because sort of putting that in, even though I had a charge over the property, I was concerned at the levels. And I just remember you saying, just get the paperwork in place and do the deal. It's an assisted sale. And I just got off the phone, and as soon as we'd finished speaking, I rang my solicitor and said, right, we're not buying it. This is what we're doing. We need to get the contracts in place. And that 2-minute phone call, I think it made me probably best part of £30,000. Like, if I look at what the flip might have made and actually what the assisted sale made, there were a big difference.
Yeah, good phone call.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, great return investment.
So what's it been like working with your partner and just that whole process as well?
It's good. It's I think for sort of couples working together, as I'm sure you'll find, there's I can be quite direct, so it's learning to actually, what are our strengths and weaknesses. I think my strength is getting out there, sort of doing deals, you know, getting contracts in place, whereas Grace's strength is very much like, she's more creative than me and she's happier doing that side, whereas, you know, like the things like the Canva and the ads and the things that, to be honest, I absolutely detest, she really enjoys. So it's just about finding out the you know, what we were both good at, and ultimately she relates better to some people than I do as well. So it's having Grace there as a sort of alternate view.
Yeah, no, that's good. And also, one of the strategies you do is that you're able to access funds, because you've been good at that. Put it to work in other people's deals, giving them what they want, but you get some on top as well.
That's also worked out very well for me. And again, I think that's using the power of the tribe as leverage. There are a lot of people in the tribe sourcing some amazing deals. See, Chris in Newcastle is one of my personal favourites and soon to become my best friend, I think. And he's obviously finding deals, you know, galore. And ultimately, he's obviously searching for quick funds. And as I said at the start, I've sort of found that my niche is probably attracting the investment, you know, sort of speaking to people, what can we do? So I've now got a JV company with an investor friend of mine who ultimately backs the company. And then, we lend out to people in the tribe.
So you've got a great arrangement there. They puts money into the GV company you've set up. He's getting his return. You're putting it to work. And obviously, if it overperforms and how you structure it, you make more money on top too.
Yeah, so he gets a base base amount on his loan to the company. Anything over that base amount, we're 50-50 on. So, obviously making quite a decent amount of money from not doing a great deal. But obviously I'm not a preferred investor for
no, but it's still great because, you know, you're carving out those opportunities, you know. It's the early startup of a fund, isn't it? When you've got support there in terms of capital and being able to put it to work and be smart with it. And the good thing is because of your background, but the knowledge you've had being through Proto and been in the game for, you know, the best part of 4 years now, you know, you become a more safer place to invest with.
Certainly agree. Yeah, and I think that's where the obviously these opportunities are coming to me because of the tribe, because of actually I've been in there now sort of 4 years, and I think people look to you as, you know, this guy's been in and done some stuff, so they trust the money is, when I say to Chris, for example, the money is there, he knows the money is there and it will be resolved. But obviously I've used these funds as well because one of the deals we didn't mention, that was end of last year, is probably my best deal.
Okay.
So I just want to touch on that one. That was basically a property that I saw in a town quite locally to me, Paynton. It looked completely abandoned, so that was obviously what attracted me to the house. I started to door knock just to see if I could find out where the people actually lived. Transpired that the lady lived in the house, so she was downstairs. There were sort of pigeons flying in the back of the roof. You know, it was the worst condition property you've ever seen. Obviously, a great opportunity in my eyes. So I started to send some direct to vendor letters to this lady. Didn't hear anything back, and then out of nowhere, she came back and said that she'd be willing to take my offer. So I'd offered £80,000 cash to this lady. She was sort of quite nervous about the move-in. So I said, look, I'll cover the solicitors. I'll cover any moving costs, anything else that you need. I can cover that. So I picked this property up at 80,000. I was all in for about 92,000. That's interest to the investor, stamp, legals, etc. My plan was to put it straight into the auction. In the auction, I think it would have fetched sort of 130, 140. But there was a local developer. The developer, he's sort of a guy, going out on his own, doing his own thing. We agreed a purchase price for 126. I sold that property within 7 weeks of me buying it. So I made £30,000. I didn't even do anything. Like I physically didn't do anything. I opened the door to check what the condition was because I'd never been in.
Yeah.
But he got a good deal because actually he's got a good project from it. And for me, it was almost smarter thinking in that actually I could go and do that refurb and I might make, I could make 50, I could make 60 maybe. But actually, if I just pass that on straight away, doing absolutely zero work, I can just take that 30 as a quick win.
It's opportunity cost, isn't it? In the sense
Certainly.
of, what time, input, effort, going raising more funds and, putting it into, like, there's no right or wrong. But the good thing is it was low hanging fruit. You structured it away, very quick turnaround, which is smart. Here's a funny one as well, which I'll talk about it, because one of my friends, do you know what he does? He looks for properties like that, or properties that are not as bad. They're just not great. And what he does, right, and he does all his off market because it's not on the market, is he will then go in, board up all the windows, right, pull up all the flooring and have floorboards hanging out and exposed and everything else, take a hammer into some of the walls and all that stuff, put it in an auction to make it appear worse than it actually is, because cosmetically it's not that difficult to and create a bidding war with people who want to get involved and thinking they're getting a deal and overpay. So he takes the same strategy. He knows that if he was to renovate it and flip it, that he could make a lot more. But he's like, bro, I'll just turn these around. If I'm making 10 grand here, 15 grand there, 20 grand there, just by doing this, then I'm in. So that was super clever.
And it's still the principle, isn't it, of having, I've made another £80,000 offer. I didn't have 80,000 just sat, but I just knew that if that offer comes through, then I can go and get that money. And I think that's been the single biggest change in belief in my life, is that, we talk at the start of Proto and right the way through about, money doesn't grow on trees and all of these sort of limiting beliefs. But actually I know full well that if I've got a good deal, I'll just go out and find that money.
Yeah, and that's it. If you can get the deals, there's always going to be money.
100%.
And it seems like it's proof of concept, doesn't it? Because once it happens for the first time, it's like, shit. Hold on a minute. I'm securing the property and I'm not putting any money in, as you say, and you've got someone else to fund the whole thing. But the investor's winning, you're winning, the seller gets what they want. And when you create that type of relationship and that synergy where everyone gets, then, that's it. It's the best way of doing business.
100%.
So tell me a bit more about the things maybe you're working on just now, and more so the bigger picture, the vision.
So in terms of working on now, so Grace has actually just led her first refurb. So I helped her getting the assisted sale contracts into place. So it's almost a more of a vanilla sort of assisted sale. Not that everyone obviously knows what they are, but it's more of it's just a 3-bed house, agreed base price 160. We'll put 50,000 into that one, so a fairly moderate refurb. So then anything over 210, I've got exactly the same arrangement with the seller. They'll get 25%, I'll get 75. So that's sort of we base my numbers on 230, but it will go more. So 230 makes us 15 and makes him another 5. I think actually it'll go sort of 250 sort of level, getting us up to closer to 30,000. So Grace has just come into the end of that one. We've got carpets going down next week, so that's a good one. But I think more importantly for us, we've now started to work on building our own portfolio, which was always my long-term goal. But I must admit, I've liked having these lumps of money coming in to obviously sort of get us to a nice position now. But we've just brought our first 2 properties for ourselves in Newcastle, again through Chris, so thanks Chris, and they're both going to be service accommodation.
Great.
Yep. So looking forward to so they're basically mid refurb at the moment.
And do you have some high level numbers, anticipation on those?
Yes, we do. So on the first one, we brought that one at 63,000. That's a 2-bed, a couple of miles away from Durham University. We've got £23,000 going into that one in the refurb, so that's 86. other costs, obviously Chris, a bit for Chris, so around 90. That should refinance around sort of 105, 110 figure. So again, I'm leaving a fairly minimal amount, in my area for a similar property, you're still leaving sort of, maybe 40,000 in, whereas here I'm looking at leaving, maybe 10. So not a great deal. And the Airbnb figures are quite good on that one. The other one, however, that's a 4-bed in a bit of a nicer area. That was 110,000 purchase price, about 15,000 refurb. We expect that one to revalue around the 180 figure. So I think we're going to be very close to getting all money out there. So that was one I absolutely love that one. The other one sort of came along, and it was a good opportunity because another one had just fallen through. So obviously we've used investors' money again to buy both of them. As soon as we refinance, we'll get the investors' money out, and then we're going to use a little bit from the assisted sale to clear that. So that'll be our first two, and it feels like quite a decent achievement for us, them two, because that was always my end goal. And obviously I've sort of taken steps to make money in the meantime, but I've never focused on longer term. So now we're actually focused on that longer term to give Grace the freedom with the baby, that actually she'll then run our sort of service accommodation Airbnb portfolio.
Awesome. So as buy-to-lets, both of those would probably get between, what, 700 quid or something there or thereabouts?
Yeah.
But with an SA, what you forecasting?
So Lilac is that's the better one. That was the 110,000 one. So that was probably, I was actually surprised. Chris said that's probably going to rent out around 1,200, which is obviously a great return on my investment, even if I didn't go for the sort of Airbnb. I think the return on the Airbnb from the top of my head is around 34,000 per year. So obviously taking my costs out of that, but I'm still doubling what I would get, as a sort of minimum.
This is what I love about the SA strategy.
Yeah.
Buy-to-let's always got a place for it. As you say, it would still work if that one was making you 1,200 quid. It still works, but when you can squeeze a lot more out with the whole SA strategy, then that's even better, more cash flow.
Definitely, exactly that.
Good stuff. So again, so how can people connect with you, reach out with you, find out more about what you're up to, what you're doing?
So LinkedIn is always a good place. So both myself, obviously Dean Kelly, and my partner Grace Jolly shares quite a lot of what we're doing. Just started using Instagram, should use it more, but not using it quite enough. And then Facebook as well. There's always a follow on Facebook. But say LinkedIn is probably our preferred strategy. And obviously it's where I raised all my money from. So it's a sort of preferred social.
Good stuff. And one more thing that I love about Dean, he's also into his jiu-jitsu, like me too. Winning these comps at white belt. You've got a couple more coming up, haven't you?
Yeah.
You won't be white for long, surely.
I think I'm just trying to sort of milk the white belt journey now, and obviously that's been another part of the sort of PMW journey, is there's quite a few obviously people like yourself doing jiu-jitsu, and that was another thing I thought, right, I've got to give this jiu-jitsu a try, and I'm absolutely love it.
Hooked.
Addicted. Yeah.
And that's the one thing just on that point, is that there's no point rushing through the belts.
No.
Like as much as I was white belt in my mind far longer than I should have been, but I was living it.
Yeah.
I was enjoying it. I fell in love with the process rather than caught up with the belt.
Yeah.
Because each belt in jiu-jitsu takes a long time before the next one.
Certainly, yeah. And it's really earning them stripes, isn't it? I think there's so much that jiu-jitsu can relate to, the property journey. And one of the Gracies just done 32 Principles, the book, and so many transferable things. And I think, most of the time we're under that sort of, pressure from someone actually in the external world of property. We're under exactly the same pressure. So it's all about how we react and how we move out of, both jiu-jitsu and the property world.
Yeah, I love all things martial arts, anything physical as such, and sports and everything else. I think that when you're working on stuff like that, it's going to push you. It's going to give you something that you want to look forward to achieve and to overcome challenges. And especially when it's martial arts, you're literally fighting against someone, in most cases. And it can bring a lot of different things out and help you with the pressures of running a business.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Good stuff. So on that note, it's been an absolute pleasure having that conversation and what you've been working on, what you've been doing. And I say this, I think, to most of my guests here, like it took me like 5 years to replace my income and go full-time in property, building a portfolio, doing a few trades. Yet you're 4 years into your journey, done way more deals, made more money in my first 5 years. And I just think that's freaking amazing. Hey, I guess it's testament to what we do with Proto and everything else as well. So as always, I'm going to link off to Dean as well as Grace in the show notes so you can reach out and connect with them. And if you get any questions, pop it in the comments below. And of course, I'll go in there and respond to them. I'm sure Dean will have an eye out as well to go in and respond as well. So hope you guys, as always, have been inspired by listening to Dean's story, and we'll catch up with you guys again soon. So all the best and bye for now.